Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Max Warframe, where today we're still making our way through the weapons released in 17.5 by taking a look at the brand new wrist-mounted ragdoll pistol, the Sonicor. Now the Sonicor is a weapon with a very interesting mechanic. Fires a projectile that travels about 15 meters before it explodes. However, when it does explode, it will ragdoll enemies away that aren't killed instantly, which is absolutely incredible fun. So is it a case of mechanics over damage with the Sonicor? Not really, no. With a base damage of 50, with the entirety of it coming in the form of impact, it's definitely not a low damage weapon at all. It puts it pretty much firmly in the mid-range of secondary weapons. In terms of supporting stats, it only comes with a 10% critical chance, 200% multiplier, and a pretty decent magazine size of 15 rounds. Now there is one stat with it that is pretty misleading though, and that is the Sonicor's 0% status chance. Now while this is technically correct, since the projectile itself has no chance of proccing anything at all when it hits an enemy, the explosion will have something like a 50% chance to proc, maybe slightly less, I'm not entirely sure of the exact numbers. But that is actually a status that doesn't show on the UI. But this means it's not only fantastic crowd control with the ragdoll, it procs impact a lot for stagger, or it will proc corrosive or radiation a lot as well, which is incredible. So for a weapon with 0% status chance, it's fantastic for spreading the crowd control around. It does have a few problems however, primarily is the short range of it with the travel time of about 15 meters, then roughly a 5 to 10 meter explosion radius, means that it's only got maybe 20 to 25 meter range at maximum. So anything beyond that is completely unhittable. Although this can be extended with the use of something like Lethal Momentum mod. The 3-second reload's also kind of painful, although that can be dealt with via mods if you want to use a mod slot for it. Fire rate's not the greatest either at just 1.25 rounds a second, however once again this can be dealt with through the use of fire rate mods. So as you can see with the Sonicor, while it does have a few noticeable problems, a few noticeable issues, none of them are something that cannot be fixed with some modding and tailoring this weapon to your personal gameplay preferences, which is fantastic. More choice is always a good thing. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Sonicor. Now it does come with a D polarity as standard, however the first thing we're going to do is remove that with Former, and we're going to add a total of 6 Former to this, which is going to be 3 Vs and 3 dashes. Now, in terms of the way we're going to build it, there's going to be pretty much half of the weapon is going to be the same between the 3 builds. We got Hornet Strike for damage, Barrel Diffusion for multi-shot, Lethal Torrent for fire rate as well as multi-shot. We've got Pummel for the extra impact damage, and we've got Quick Draw, which is going to increase the or decrease the reload speed to a much more manageable 2 seconds. Now we're going to go straight elemental on this. I haven't noticed the dual stats doing anything to the status chance of the explosion, so we're just going to go with a straight elemental. So for the Grenadier we're going Convulsion and Primed Heated Charge for Radiation, and Pathogen rounds for Toxin. For the Corpus, Deep Freeze and Convulsion, which is going to bring up Magnetic, and Pathogen rounds for the Toxin damage. And in the Void, Convulsion, Pathogen rounds for Corrosive, Primed Heated Charge for the Heat damage. And if you're running Corrosive Projection, just switch out Convulsion for Deep Freeze, and then you've got the Viral and Heat combo that you need for that. So do I think it's worth the time, effort and the Former to max it? And the answer to that is absolutely yes it is. The Sonicor was the first weapon I tried out with the 17.5 weapons, and I've struggled to put it down since. I'm not bothered that the damage isn't really the best, especially if you compare it to the Lex Prime, the Vehicle Marelock, but this is one of the most fun weapons that has been released in a long time. Ragdolling enemies never ever gets old. Watching heavy gunners or bombards or techs get launched into the sky or across the room is incredible, and actually it's a lot more scalable in terms of enemy scaling and enemy level than people give it credit for. When people think of weapon scalability and how they perform end game, more often than not it's something like pretty much only damage is the only thing that gets looked at and considered. But as you've seen from some of my endurance runs, weapon damage falls off at those high levels as well, and that is where the utility of a weapon like this comes into being. And something like the Sonicor will ragdoll a level 2000 enemy just as well as a level 500 or level 100 or even level 50, giving it some serious high level scalability even once the damage from the Sonicor has dropped off. Now in terms of different mods you can use on this, fire rate is always an option. Quick draw for reload, lethal momentum for extending the range, and I've even seen people talk about magnum force extending the range of the explosion, although to be fair, I've not really seen this or seen any benefit from using magnum force, but it's still an option to try nonetheless. But in essence, it's incredible fun, pretty decent damage and some great endgame potential as a late game ragdoll cannon to keep those high priority enemies off their feet and not shooting back at you. The Sonicor is one of the best weapons released in quite a long time. Worth the investment, and I can guarantee you will have endless fun with this thing. As always guys, many thanks for watching and I shall see you in the next video.